right, and welcome back to another episode of the Self-Directed Podcast. Today's guests, we have Bryan Dewhurst and Phillip Ramsey, co-founders of Uncommon Wealth Partners, also authors of a new upcoming book, The Uncommon Wealth. Uncommon Wealth, I think, is just the title. So welcome to the show. Love you all to both introduce yourselves, and we'll dive right in.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's a huge honor to, one, just be in the presence of awesomeness and love the uncommon things that you are promoting and doing at such a young age. And so that's Bryan and I's kind of mantra of trying to give people some different avenues and options for people. But yeah, my name is Phillip Ramsey. I live in the Midwest in Iowa, of all places. And Bryan and I have been partnering for 10 years, helping people go down this uncommon path. And that is our company name, is Uncommon Wealth. And the title of our book, The Uncommon Wealth, You Are Your Best Asset, Invest in Yourself, is kind of the title underneath the title, So yep. Glad to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm Bryan Dewhurst. I grew up in the Midwest, been around the financial services business pretty much my entire life. I remember at like 6 years old being in a brokerage firm, kind of like Wall Street style. My mom's firm, still in existence today in Omaha, and then did 5 years of business consulting with Deloitte & Touche. So kind of putting all that together, business consulting, business coaching with personal financial planning, and kind of wrapping a bow around all that and showing people how, all this stuff can fit together, not only investments, but, building businesses, real estate, and kind of the 7 sources of residual income is what, the book kind of centers around of how to unlock residual income. So yeah, super excited to be on the show.
Awesome. Well, welcome. We're excited to have you. And let's just dive right in. I want to ask the big burning question first that's coming up is, what does it mean to have an uncommon life? I know you have a podcast. This is kind of the big theme in your philosophy is living uncommonly. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, for me, and I'm going to let Bryan answer because it's always different when I answer. His is pretty much the same. So he'll cover me if I screw this whole thing up. But really, for me, it's like unlocking how you're uniquely gifted and using that every day. So like you get to wake up in the morning, you're excited to go to work, quote unquote, and you get to like dive into how you're uniquely gifted. Also, you're getting paid for it. I think that's something that's pretty important because we all have bills to pay. But then you're impacting other. I think there's a lot of things about you can do it by yourself on a beach or on a golf course, but you're not really impacting others. And so that's another key component of the uncommon wealth. And for me, wealth is defined differently than most. Most people will define it as a financial wealth. I think about relational, spiritual, health wise, and like all those things are taken into account in the uncommon wealth path, or uncommon path as we call it. And you're using your gifts to wake up in the morning, impact others, and absolutely love your life. So that's, to me, the uncommon wealth idea, the uncommon path, in my words. But Bryan, go ahead, brother. Take it away.
That was a huge portion of it. I think for where, my background is, and what my role is within our firm, a lot of it is kind of more the financial side, the numbers, building wealth. And when I was in my mom's firm, I worked for 2 advisors and was helping them in their business and kind of more in like an intern role. And I was just like, how did all these people over here why do they have so much more money than everybody else? And it's like, oh, they own businesses and they sold their business and cashed out. And, we're building wealth in several different ways. So I was always fascinated by that. And it's just not something that is taught in school. And, I went to Creighton University in Omaha, double majored in economics and finance, didn't learn that there either. And so really, as I wanted to become an entrepreneur myself, it was kind of putting all this together. And then also just like, you're not guaranteed tomorrow. I almost died when I was 19. When I was in college at a ski trip, got a weird virus that attacks your heart and almost checked out. And so, for me, it was always as an only child and somebody who had a near-death experience of like, life is short, like yep. I want to live the way I want to live right now. But how do I do that without sacrificing tomorrow? And how do I do that, sharing my gifts with the world, as kind of Phillip stated. And so that's kind of the uncommon life formula, I think, is, how are you uniquely gifted? How do you monetize that? And how do you do it in an authentic and amazing way that you get to kind of build a life that you are excited about?
Yeah, that's That's powerful, and it's amplified by the fact of like having a near-death experience that sort of changes that perspective. You don't want to wish that on anybody, but that's why I like that you all publish a book. You have a lot of content on your website. You have the podcast. You're sharing that information so other people don't necessarily have to wait until a life-threatening incident to have that aha moment. There's education out there. So as I think about kind of some of the ideas you've shared, we've talked about, I've read on your website, these uncommon principles, if you will, of money. Mm-hmm. What are the biggest things today that are the discrepancies or differences between what people are led to believe is the right, smart, big things they should be doing, as opposed to these things that actually help lead toward the more uncommon in wealth, the non-monetary aspects? What are some of those things?
Right. I think what we always say is residual income is like passive income. I'm sure you've heard that. It's far from passive. Yeah. In fact, the road that you go down is actually daunting and hard. That being said, what are you passionate about? So when you do hit that wall or you hit obstacles, they're overcome because you actually love what you're doing. So a lot of people are like, I want to get into real estate. Do you want to get into real estate? Or is that it's like somebody that you heard your neighbor's good at it? And so really trying to dive in on what you get excited about, because when things get tough, it's going to have to go down to that, oh, I actually really like doing this. And it doesn't feel like work, although it is, sometimes it's a trudge through mud. It isn't passive at all. And so for us, we really want people to know that you are an amazing asset, and to encourage that kind of way that you're wired and to uniquely customize a plan around that. Because it's not going to be passive at all. So I think one of the big misconceptions is passive income is easy. No, passive income isn't easy. And I love this analogy with a rock star singing the song, the hit song. By the time they sing that song, they freaking hate that song. It's like, that's the last song I want to play because I've played it for so many people. I've played it so many times, but that's where perfection comes, right? And that's where like audiences want to see that. But it's not easy. And so for people to understand uniquely that it's going to be a tough road, and we need to find that thing that gets you excited, maybe not even us. Like I can't even tell you how many times people are like, hey, I want to go invest in X. Well, we don't know anything about X, but they do. And so to encourage them to step down that path in such a way that, hey, after a while, this is going to be a huge and amazing investment, and to be able to ever change with them, because at the beginning of things, you think it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows, and it isn't. And eventually when you're actually thriving in something, you're actually like, hey, I like this component. I don't really like this component. How do I hire somebody to do that they're uniquely gifted in helping? So it's ever changing. It's passive. It's exciting, but it's not easy. And so trying to figure that out. Bryan, what would you say?
I think as it relates to what you guys are doing, Mitchell, is just the whole cultural emphasis on getting a job. You have to get a job. That's the safe path. You need to get benefits. You need to take the sure thing. I think that is so over communicated that, a lot of kids, I was one of those kids. It's funny. My son got a shaved ice maker at Walmart the other day, and he's just like geeking out on it. He's already made like 7 flavors, instead of buying the bottles at Walmart that are like $4.99 each, he's making his own, simple syrup concoctions with sugar and water. And, I can just see the wheels turning. And I was like, oh man, I remember those moments, when I was 13 or 14 and my parents thought I was crazy, and I love my parents dearly, but a lot of people aren't geared to helping you start a business or helping you. And whether my son starts a shaved ice business or not, that's not the point, but it's encouraging those behaviors of interacting with clients and building a product that people might want to buy. And how do you price that? And where do you share it? And I think he would learn more from that maybe than he would in a lot of the cases, some of the stuff he's learning in, 7th or 8th grade. And then the pressure, to just, well, that's different from what everybody else is doing. You shouldn't do that. And so it was just fun to encourage him in that moment of like, no, this could be a legitimate, fun thing for you to figure out this summer, And so I think that is just what we see a lot of, is this pressure that you got to get a job as option A. You know, when you look at it from an investing perspective of like, you hear the opposite. When you're young, you can take all this risk and it's okay if you lose money. I kind of think about it the exact backwards of that, of, you're going to need that money 100%. Like, what if you didn't take any risk with that money, but you took risk with your job, and you did start a business? I don't understand why starting a business or doing something entrepreneurial isn't more of an option A for more kids. And I get it. There's a system to go to college and do all these things. But I think that to us is one of the bigger myths out there, and why we're so excited about Praxis is this is a legitimate gap year alternative to a four-year institution if you don't know what you want to do. And it seems like a large portion of the kids don't really know what they want to do, as much as we as parents probably want them to figure that out. It's not the reality of where they're at.
Yeah, no doubt. More and more, I think today there's a plethora of career options out there that didn't even exist, 10 years ago when I was, starting out. And I think that increased level of optionality kind of adds to the pressure of like, oh my gosh, I got to figure it out. There's so many different things. What do I want to do? Anyway, I like that advice. I like the emphasis on like, go follow the things you're excited about, like where the wheels are turning, and go and fulfill that learning experiment, get the lessons that are attached to following things you're excited about. So another question I want to ask, and there's maybe multiple different milestones that you can both think of, but I'm interested in both of your educational journey. And going from, hey, this is the things we all learn, we're all told this is the way it is, to having this, going down this path of like, wait, maybe there's a different route, and not just like the uncommon non-financial stuff, but like as it relates to money, the way you think about money, your relationship to money, careers, all of this. What was your educational journey? Was there, a specific moment or book or situation that started that? And what were some of the high points?
Good. Bryan, take it off. Go. I talk all day.
Well, I think in terms of the tangible, I grew up, my mom was, working in a brokerage firm, not on the production side or the advisor side, but more on the operations side. And then my dad was in the treasury department of Mutual of Omaha insurance companies. And then he was really in banking. So, I mean, I was pretty much insulated by the triangle of finance, as I call it: banking, investments, and insurance. That's what I grew up in. And I was unique and blessed because I knew at a very young age what I wanted to do professionally after my dreams of becoming a Major League Baseball player died. And, I knew I wanted to be an advisor from like 13. So I went to Creighton in Omaha, which is the predominant, private college, financial business school, that type of thing. I majored in economics and finance. And then I interned for my mom's securities firm all 4 years of college, worked every week. So, I mean, I had the path, it was paved. So I felt really lucky in that sense. What really shifted my view was going in and then spending 5 years at Deloitte & Touche in consulting and seeing how Fortune 100 companies make money and how they make money 10 different ways from Sunday, and how that money just keeps coming in. I mean, 24/7. That was really powerful for me, of like analyzing these companies from the outside in the investment world, and then seeing it from the inside, talking to the people that were actually making it happen. That was profound for me, like just real business experience. So I would say to anybody that has a chance, going back to taking a job thing, but if you can work in the Big Four accounting world for 3 to 5 years, you will learn a ton about business. That was an invaluable experience for me. And then I think really out of that, one of the most profound books for me was Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrant, and how simplistic it was of the 4 squares and how do you move between the 4 squares. That was really profound. And then for me, really, and I'll leave this one for Phillip.
Right there on the shelf.
Yeah, right there on the shelf. Is just mentorship. I was really just disgruntled at, if you find yourself working for people and you're always like, well, they should do this and they should fix this, it probably means you should start your own business. But I had some mentors come alongside me, and they're just like, they were business owners, and they're just like, you got to go out on your own. You got too much to share with the world. And so it was a combination of these inputs and then that encouragement from people that knew me and cared about me to help me, see that different path.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. For me, nothing that I'm going to talk about happened in school. So, so there's that. But for me, it was after school because I've never been a good test taker. Education was never my jam. And so I wanted to get out of college as fast as I could because I knew the real world experience was the most valuable thing. So give me that stupid diploma as fast as I can in whatever it was. I got general studies. Like, what is that exactly? That's a pass to get out as quick as you can with a leadership minor. And what I found was after school was where the education started for me. And it was trying to understand, where following the money, because if you follow the money, you start realizing what kind of the behind the curtain is. And so I got into sales pretty quickly. And what I found, I was a pharmaceutical rep for Abbott Laboratories, and they brought me out to Chicago, trained me for 3 months, super intense training. And then I would go talk to the doctors, and we talk about this in the book, but the first meeting I had with the doctor, I was ready to show up and throw up all the information Abbott Laboratories were telling me. And he was super dismissive, 10 seconds was the interaction after I here's all the stuff I'm learning. And then he was like, let me sign your pad and let's get out of here. But he said, that's interesting. That's what they're teaching you. Like, that was his only response to me. And then he signed my pad and then it was done. But I remember wait a second, that's what they're teaching me. So the next doctor I went to, I said, hey, this is what they're teaching me. You tell me what your experience was. And the interaction went 15 minutes. And here's what I found. At the end of the day, Abbott Laboratories were teaching me what to say to the doctors for whose benefit. Abbott Laboratories, nothing against them. It's a for-profit company. Yep. But the doctors were seeing something very different or in a little different perspective. And for me, that was very powerful because when I got out of pharmaceuticals and I started going into financial advising, I started with Principal Financial Group. We're pretty candid about that. And they were doing the same thing to me. A big company was teaching me how to go talk to all my family and friends for whose benefit. And I'm like, you're kind of doing it for your benefit. And so as I would meet with people, I would say I haven't figured out this industry yet. Don't buy a single thing from me. Because I just was it just seems backwards. And the big company doesn't seem like they have your best interest at stake. They have the shareholders and all these different things. And so trying to help, I guess, give clarity to this whole thing of no, you are your best asset. Now, what is maybe a product, maybe not, maybe you just need a cash flow.
Yep.
How do we be advisors that actually help you make more money, then be advisors that take money out of your wallet and help you, amass this wealth for when you're 60 and you hate your life at Wells Fargo or whatever, So that was when the crux of I just need to do more education on how to really help people. And I don't think I'm going to get this education from bigger companies because at the end of the day that they have their best interest at hand. That's what my perspective was. And so that's when Bryan and I met up and he's like, I know a different way. I just don't know how to sell it. And I'm like, yep. You teach me, buddy, and we'll go the distance. And so that was 10 years ago. Yeah. We're still doing it.
And that's awesome. And I can relate so much to that early experience. I started my career out of college working with Northwestern Mutual. And it was just completely drinking from a fire hose on all these different things. And the pitch is it's products. You're not selling results. You're not trying to understand results people want. You're pitching products. And I remember I'm sure I lost some friends over that. I'm sure my family didn't want to talk to me during that phase. And you go home after a while and you're like, something's wrong about this. I feel dirty. Yes. I feel like I have to take a shower and
preach it,
and it's the products can be good. And there are good products. Right. I think a lot of it is about what's the result you're trying to get, but that's not often the conversation, but it's the approach. So much it's focused on, selling versus helping somebody achieve a result. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the uncommon versus the common things is I think a lot of times, and I'd love to hear your input on this too. I think a lot of times people think about their life, their financial plans in terms of, hey, here are the pieces, regardless of what I want to do, what is important to me. Here are the things I need. I I need life insurance. I need a 401k. I need a job, a stable income. I need a mortgage and, these kind of things. And those are one size fits all things that are always part of everybody's plan. It's like, well, maybe, but maybe not. So yeah. I'd love to hear more about kind of both of your own experience as actual, financial planners working with people to overcome, misconceptions about kind of those one size fits all. I need these products because that's what I've been told.
Yeah, Mitchell, this is my favorite thing. Like sitting down with somebody, and everyone has this reluctancy to sit down with a financial advisor. I get it. I freaking get it. You have no idea.
It's you don't want to get stuck next to them in the airplane.
Those people. I love sitting down with somebody for the first time and like not caring anything about what's in their wallet. I could care less, but like asking them, what do they really want to do? Like what gets them excited? What do they do in their off season? Like, tell me about your marriage, like things like that. And really try to get to understand who they are and then challenge them of like, but why do you need that money? Because a lot of people were like, I just need to amass $14 million or some God knows what number. But why? Like, then what are you going to do with it? Like, let's say we got you that, like, what are you going to do with it? Well, then it starts going into, well, then I would do this. And it usually, honestly, involves some kind of like work. I think we were all created to create. Like God created us to create. So we are all kind of inherently wanting to create something, but not a lot of people have been encouraged to create something. And so don't try to create this big amount of money that will never be big enough. Try to create something with your money to actually get you excited to get up tomorrow. Now that's a whole different kind of conversation. It's a mindset shift. And so when you start seeing the person on the other side of the table start like getting encouraged again, because they know I'm not going to talk about their money. That's the last thing I care about right now. It's like, what would we do with the money if you even did that? Yep. And how do you want to amass this wealth? Because if it's sitting at a cubicle, the cubicle of doom, it's not something I want to do. And I just don't know if a lot of people are inherently created that way. Some people are, great for them. But then you start really opening up to the why behind what people want. And that to me is the power. But then you can't be a bad steward of that information. You can't be like, okay, well, here's the product, like, which I think a lot of people would push. No, like, here's a couple things that you can do right now to help you down that path. It's really fun to be able to do that. So, Bryan, I probably missed the question completely, so you can help me on that.
Oh, I think we lost
him too.
No, I had mute. I think you do a great job, Phillip, of, getting people focused on envisioning that life right now. And I think to go back to the question, like if you think about traditional financial planning in the way it's executed by most firms, I'm going to leave names out. They're really planning for the last day of your life. You're really trying to, like, if you put money in a 401k, you're really trying to buy the last day of your life and you're working backwards. That feels terrible. What really, what we've resonated with and what Phillip just shared is like, what do you want to do tomorrow? And how do we get you to that? And if you solve for that, the money will probably work out if you're successful in solving for tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And so largely that's what we try to do is, Phillip gets people to, envision their life that they want to live. And when you talk to most people, hey, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish financially? It's normally like 1 to 3 years. But when you look at traditional financial planning, in a large part, it's 30 years away. And so we try to close that gap of like, well, how do we improve tomorrow? And then how do we improve the next day and then next month? And when you solve for those 1 year goals, well, you actually kind of get re-energized about your life. And we meet with a lot of people. Like I love Dave Ramsey because he gets a lot of people focused on, not getting into dumb debt, keeping things simple, and just accomplishing goals. But a lot of those people, then they just kind of fizzle out because it's like, well, now I got to just put all my money in a 401k and it's not really tangible to me. And I'm kind of stuck in this job that I don't like. And I kind of want to be over there, but I don't know how to get there because now I'm trapped. I put all my liquidity into something that's not liquid and I'm kind of stuck. Mm-hmm. And so they don't have that goal or that target to really hone in on and go after, which is how they got out of debt. So we kind of help recalibrate those short-term targets so you get re-energized and your money has purpose for things that you want, not things that Phillip and I want, or, trying to sell product. It's like, no, what is important in your life and how are we going to get there as fast as humanly possible?
Right. Yeah. I think you make a good point. Continuing on the Dave Ramsey thing, like, man, so many people need to hear, get out of debt, cut your spending, put a budget together, like come up with a plan. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people even go that next step and they get the accumulation part right. But it's like, I've forgotten about utilization, about, the distribution of that money. And it's like people have part of the equation. They have part of the equation. And again, for some people, get out of debt is probably the best advice and the most important advice until they do that. It's funny how, everybody has their own school of thought. Mm-hmm. And hey, here's the way you should do it. But at the end of the day, it goes back to what you're saying, Phillip, about like, it's not about pushing that person or that company's, for their profit. It's about living the uncommon life you want, not using these products or this particular approach and trying to plug it into your own equation and hope that, somebody else's equation for your life spits out the result that you want. I'm going to go on a rabbit trail. I could rant all day, but I want to bring it back with another question for you. So, most of the people we work with, they are young adults. They are either coming right out of high school or they're a couple years out, some dropping out of college, some a year or two out of college and still not quite sure what it is that makes them come alive, still trying to figure it out. What advice do you have for people in that age and stage of their life about things that I should be doing now to prioritize, good decisions, sound money decisions, just keeping my options open so I can live the life that I want? What advice, tips, any other points that you would give to that person in, that age and stage?
Go ahead, Bryan.
I kind of wanted you to go first.
Okay. I would say it would be non-tangible, just mentorship. Who is mentoring you? Like, who is it that you really value of how they live their life, the relationship they have with the community? Just like, who is it that is in your life that's probably the biggest person that you know? I'd be like, go talk to those people. Not only go talk to those people, share your life and where you're going with those people and let them come around you and like, hey, I'm going to help you get there. Because if anything in my life, it's been people have believed in me far more than I believed in myself. And they were willing to prove it to me by taking time or introducing me to another relationship to help me become the best person that I could be. So I think mentorship is a huge opportunity for young people, and people inherently like to help people. And so if you have a clear path of where you'd like to go, or you don't have a clear path, go talk to a mentor. Like, go talk to somebody that you respect in the community and just say, hey, this is how I'm uniquely wired. I'm on time all the time. I really like to, due dates are, I hate them, but I love them because I always get done. Or whatever you think it is that you want to do, like, hey, I want to be professional baseball or whatever it is, like Bryan, like, how can you get closer to that to really see if that's what you want to do? Because in today's world, we're told, hey, just go to college and figure it out, which please don't do that. Like, don't go into debt when you don't have a plan. That is the silliest thing in the world. Like, and at the end of that, you might be putting a noose around your neck because now you have to go pay off that debt that you just amassed. And now you have to go sit at a cubicle of doom job. And now you're kind of locked in to your forever, because then you get a wife and then you get a kid or you get a spouse. And then you got a car payment. Then you got and it starts going quick. Yep. And so if you can start being strategic and really being excited about your next step of just, hey, pour into me, maybe even your parents, scary to say that, like, what have you seen me good at? And what have you seen me like not so good at? Like, be honest with me.
Yep.
And doing that. So I think that is a big thing I would tell a lot of people is, it happens quick. And it's kind of like the proverbial frog in the boiling water. You don't realize it until you get out of college and you realize that you have to now pay off that debt. And now you have to, what am I going to do? You have no experience, but you have a lot of debt. And then you get a customer service job and you're on the phone every day at a cubicle of doom. And then so it starts. So I would say however we can instill, even in individuals, but parents, think differently about your kids' education. Because at the end of the day, I'm a business owner. And if I had two people in front of me, one never went to college, has 4 years of experience with an industry that I respect, or a person that just got out of college, I am hiring the person with experience all day long. And that's what Praxis does and is. Like, you're not even going bat for the child and the student, but you're making sure they have an education that is valuable to the marketplace. And when you're starting to see, tuition get jacked up for, crazy, you got to think differently. So for me, I would say you get a mentor that's going to pour into you. And at the end of the day, if that mentor says you go to this college, take these classes, fine, I'll do it. But at the end of that rainbow, then that mentor is going to get me a job. So have somebody start, taking time and start pouring into you so they can take responsibility for your future. That's what I would say.
Awesome.
I'm going to keep mine abbreviated. Number one, budget. It's the word nobody wants to do, but when you're 18 to 22 or 16 to 25, whatever kind of your target, demographic is, learning how to budget, I think, is so paramount. It's actually, I grew up in this business and I didn't get on a budget early on, and I've paid for it, So budgeting is one. Two, we wrote the book really because we were talking to high school personal finance classes. One of our clients brought us in to speak to her students, and it was just kind of this question. And I think there's such a pressure, kind of like the myths of finance we were talking about earlier. The other one to me is like, oh, you got to max out your IRA and Roth IRA and all this stuff, which I think is great. Please hear that. We have people doing that. We advocate for that. But put 50 grand in the bank first. Like, if you get out into the real world and you want to start a business, I can tell you it takes money. You want to have a wife and kids, a car, mortgage, it takes money. And if you put all of your money into a qualified account, and there's some ways to get it out, taxes, all that. I don't want to get into that, but just put 50K in the bank. Put 50K together and get a capital foundation to invest in your life. And so I would say that. And then lastly, I think it's kind of, I'm going to say it a little bit more dramatic for emphasis. So I want to be careful with that. But it's kind of like what Phillip said, it's mentoring. It's almost like be selfish, like figure out who you are and the way you're designed and not worry so much about what everyone else is doing. Like, self-awareness is so huge. And the faster you can get that, the faster you're going to be in alignment with the way you're built. And there's a lot of people that just aren't built to be entrepreneurs. I've learned that too. It's not something you can teach. But to the kids that are like, I don't know what I want to do, I can't figure it out, you got to just try stuff and know that you're not going to fail. Those are just stepping stones to learning who you are and the way you're wired and what you're good at and what ultimately you're here for. And the faster you can do that, the better for everybody. So those are kind of my three.
Yeah. All awesome advice. All awesome advice. So great segue here. Tell us about the book.
Yeah. The book. We've been writing this bad boy for 2 years, so I feel just excited it's out. It's really, at the end of the day, it's more the philosophy. It's the mindset. Do you truly align with the uncommon mindset? And if you do, then we give like case studies in the book of like people who are doing this well. And then we give a tool throughout the book that you can kind of write down on one page what your uncommon path is, what assets you have to pull from, because at the end of the day, like, you're going to probably need some money to do this. And then kind of giving you a 1, 3, and 5 year picture of everything. So it's on one page. We feel like that's valuable. Like, financial advising can be really complicated, but it doesn't have to be. And so whatever gets you to get off, the rocking chair and start moving towards this uncommon life, we wanted it at the end of the day to be interactive book, and give somebody a tool at the end of the day to go down this uncommon path. Because at the end of the day, we need more people to go down and like really triple down on the way that they're gifted. And a lot of times what we just do is encourage people. Hey, you can do this. And let's make sure you and your spouse, is usually who we talk to, are on the same page. So there's checks and balances if things don't go according to plan. That being said, that's going to happen. And when it happens, you actually learn a lot more about yourself than you ever would. You learn a lot more than just giving your money to financial advisors and watching it go down 30%. Like, you're going to start seeing and learning, and you're going to be getting closer and closer to what gets you excited every day. And we're going to try to get you paid as well. So that's really what the book is. And we know that this message, this philosophy is bigger than Bryan and I, but we hope that it encourages a lot of people to start going down this path for sure.
Great.
Yeah, I think for me, like I said, we were speaking at high school classes about personal finance, and that's really what, God kind of does things, you'll get these like, this person says this, and you're not soliciting this advice. It just kind of happens, like, and then another person says this, another person. So it was like, I think 3 or 4 situations within 1 month where like people are like, you should write a book. You should write a book. You should write. And not only that, we teach people, multiple streams of residual income. Well, a great stream and a great way to promote your brand is writing a book. So it was kind of part for me, like, we're telling people to do this. We've had clients write books. I've always kind of wanted to write a book. And then it was 2, just this confirmation of like, you should write a book, you should write a book. So it was really that. And then, like Phillip said, in the 1900s, 90% of the country, if we go back to Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant, 90% of the country was business owners or self-employed. Now it's less than 10%. Government employees now account, I think, for like 50 or 55% of the national workforce. And so we need a resurgence in entrepreneurialism. We need a resurgence in business, U.S. business as well, because we all are aware that a lot of things have been shipped overseas. I'm not trying to make this political, but there's an absolute need for a new tranche of business owners and entrepreneurs in the U.S. And we want to be on the forefront of that. And we want people to know that you're not crazy, that you're not alone, and that there is some, planning that you can do to do this and actually live it out. And that's why we're here. And that's why we wrote the book. And we're super excited.
Awesome. Also excited to share that. I will link to the book page on your website. Any other parting thoughts, points of wisdom, things you want to include for our listeners?
No, I would say, I don't know if your listeners are like students or adults, but what I would say is like, Praxis sometimes will be the best received when the adult actually gets this mindset shift of like, I want to give my student this option of, hey, here's a different way. And, everyone talks about the gap year, and that's usually rubbish, but gap year with intention is brilliant. Like, I think for my kids, I'm almost going to say like, hey, you have to do this and make this be your, super senior year, but use this time as something to try to learn more about yourself. Now, at the end of that, if you want to go back to college and be strategic with that, then please do so by all means. But like, I want to at least open up that mindset for my child of like, it doesn't have to be just straight to college you go.
Yeah.
It can be, let's be intentional about who you are and make sure you know where you're going if college is where you're going, if that's the end of the road. So for me, I just want to encourage the parents and the adults listening that have children to be able to give their child an option of, hey, let's just look into this and let's really write out the pros and the cons, because that's, to me, the most powerful thing. When as parents, we can throw the problem on the board and we can be shoulder to shoulder with our kids and say, let's work through this together. So you can see how my mommy and daddy's mind work. We have younger kids, obviously, but we can also hear your side of things of like, I want to go to this great university. Like, let's talk through that, And so that to me is just giving them options, and what you're doing, I'm super excited to be a part of. And so.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, I think it's just to continue on the path that you're on. If you're listening to this, you're obviously, thinking differently than society is wanting you or encouraging you maybe to think. And I think the intentionality of that is huge. And I think this is the future. I think we're going to go back towards, more of that apprenticeship style of pathway out of high school and into a profession. And, more of these companies are trying to align with community colleges or even high schools, workforce readiness and job skills at a younger age. And I just think what you guys are doing is so important. And that year within your program at Praxis, I think could just pay so many dividends, over the course of a life. And if you do end up going to a 4-year school, we're not saying that's bad, but I think you would be so much more focused and well-served, with a year like this, of being intentional. And so just super happy to be on the show and, encourage that pathway is something that is really important and necessary in this where we're at as a country. So.
Right. I want to quick add this. So one thing, like Bryan and I obviously are huge advocates, and we want Uncommon Wealth to be focused on even the next generation after, so we wanted to put together a scholarship of $1,000 for those who reach out to us to go to Praxis. And you can just email me, myself. It's Phillip, Phillip, at uncommonwealth.com. And we would love to bless a family for $1,000 towards the tuition of Praxis. So please, really, we do want to bless, people, and we do want to encourage this uncommon mindset earlier than later, because I'm telling you, that is going to be worth its weight in gold to everybody to do that. So
that's awesome. Incredibly generous. Also go to discoverpraxis.com/uncommonwealth. You can check out more there, get more information about the scholarship. Thank you both. For your time, for your thoughts, for the generosity with the scholarship. Thanks for joining the show. To learn more about Phillip and Bryan, the work they're doing, go visit uncommonwealth.com. And thanks again. This has been another episode of the Self-Directed Podcast. We will be back again soon.